In this DVD, we're going to focus on some new techniques. So we have Notabon, cut kick, which is kind of like a front leg side kick, push kick or rear leg side kick, and up ball, which is a front leg counter round kick. In our first class, we're going to focus on Notabon. Notabon is a spinning round kick, and there are a number of different ways to execute this kick. We're going to first learn how to execute it on the floor using some steps that we know. Then we're going to learn how to do it with a little bit of a hop. This is an intermediate version. And then finally, we'll do it in the air, or the way it's most usefully executed. So fighting stance. Good. In this position, as always, we start in a balanced fighting stance. The athlete, there are a number of ways to do this, but basically he's going to turn in. I don't like to use the word spin in, because spin makes the athlete make a big circular motion. And remember, everything we do, the body comes in nice and tight. So we don't want them to think about spinning into the technique, but rather almost as if they're stepping backwards. So when I teach this technique, I start in this position, and I teach them to look, spin, turn nice and tight. So again, we're going to have the athlete look backwards, step back, look, step in. Now we make this a little bit quicker. Go. Good. Everything is nice and tight, legs are nice and tight, body is nice and tight. This is the most basic way to do it. This is, again, starting with steps and not kicks. We want them to learn how to do the motion on the floor. So as we're teaching it, we go back again, just like that, depending on the level of the athlete. Have them look in this direction, help them with your hand, pull them back. They turn, have them step in. That's the basic level of the kick. When we want to start to teach them the second level of the kick, we do exactly the same thing. We have them look, turn, but instead of putting the foot on the floor, I have them keep the foot off the floor just a touch. Then I have them hop and turn in. Okay? This is the second version of the kick, or hop step Notabon. So they turn, look, lift, hop, and step in. Okay? A little quicker, it looks like this. Okay? A little bit of a hop step in between, or a follow foot motion. So they hop and step. Go! Okay? One more time. Now, if they have a trouble with the hop, you have them spin, they lift the leg, hop, and step. You can use your hand to propel them forward, make sure they're going straight. Finally, we have the version of the kick where they just simply spin, and before this leg touches the floor, they switch their feet and land. Go. Very nice, very nice. So work from the most basic level of it on the floor, working into the hop step on the floor, and then finally that spinning technique. Let's do it towards the camera so you can get a view of it. So, notice the tightness of the angle. First one is just a spin on the floor, and in. Good. We draw back. Second one is spin, leave the leg up, hop, and step down. Good. And the final version is the spin that happens in the air. Notice how tight all the technique was and all the steps were. This is how we want to start to teach the kick. I'm going to leave the athlete in this position because I want you to see the next level. So now, first one is on the floor, Notabon on the floor. Spin in, touch the floor, and step. Now we change that last portion to a round kick. Spin in, touch the floor, round kick. That's a Notabon. That's what a Notabon is. Spinning roundhouse kick, or 360-degree round kick. Bring it back. Spin, touch the floor. Nice and tight, kick. The quicker you make that motion, the more effective the technique will be. The quicker you make the motion, the more effective the technique will be. Come on back. So, spin and kick quickly on the floor. Notabon. Now, we're going to try it with the hop step. So we're going to spin, leave that leg in the air, hop in, and round kick. Good. It happens a little bit more quicker. This is hop step, Notabon. Go! Very nice. Notice a little bit of a hop, covering some distance, so that you can learn how to attack with the kick, but still a little bit safer than the final one. Now the final one, everything occurs in the air. Go! Good. This is your ultimate goal for Notabon. Everything occurs in the air, 360, but very tight, hence it's very quick. So as I'm teaching this in this portion of the class, again, I'm breaking it down just like this, and I might only teach one version of it. I think I'll teach just the version on the floor. Then for my advanced students, I wanted to preview what would happen. This is the version on the floor. If you have students that are capable of it, lift it right up to the third version. Don't worry about the second version. So either the first version, everything on the floor, or the third version. Okay, now that we've learned the technique in the air, we've worked on different ways of teaching it, we're going to get into the meat of the class. We're going to work on the combination first in the air like we always do. So it's round kick, Notabon. Okay. This technique, again, can be performed either in the air or on the floor. So you have a student who has a little bit of difficulty doing it in the air. You slow it down and do it on the floor. So you'll go round kick, spin in, touch the floor, and round kick. That's all it is. And they practice it on both sides. Now we'll back them up. Second is going to be step round kick. So we're going to start with a step round kick, Notabon. Very nice. This technique, now the thing that we've changed is there's a step involved. The step is going to create a more dynamic movement forward, forcing your opponent backwards, and the Notabon, of course, speaks for itself. Very powerful as long as you keep everything tight and everything moves in the same direction. So once again, let's back up. Round kick into Notabon. And step round kick into Notabon. Very nice. The air portion of the class, again, shouldn't be as long as everything else, but just enough to refine the technique and move on to the targets. Now that we've practiced the technique in the air, we've demonstrated the different ways it can occur, we're going to practice combinations on targets. First combination is going to be round kick into Notabon. So we have round kick, Notabon. We'll move the athlete back. Once again, round kick, Notabon. Now this drill in and of itself can be done over and over. Let the athletes travel down the floor, this simple combination of round kick into Notabon. It'll take some time. If they have trouble with this technique, we're going to slow it down. We go round kick. They step down, spin in, touch the floor, and round kick. This way, it actually is a little bit easier, but actually for some people it's a little bit harder. Because if they're spinning in and not just stepping in, it's going to be too wide, they're going to fall off balance, and their energy will drag them over past the point of impact. Once again, round kick, Notabon. Very nice. Now, the next combination is going to be step round kick into Notabon. It's a little bit more difficult because the energy is changing. You're turning this shoulder in and turning this shoulder in, then you have to switch directions, turn this shoulder in and continue to spin. So it's not a continual spinning motion like round kick into Notabon because of that one little change. So we're going to go slow first. Step round kick. Now the spin occurs. Very nice. Here we go again. Step round kick. Notabon. The good news is all that energy is still traveling forward, and it's going to cause them to be able to do the Notabon. The challenge is going to be if they break that energy in the middle and don't turn their shoulder all the way. So let's review. These are the two techniques. We have round kick, Notabon, step round kick, Notabon. First portion of the class, after we've done the warm-up, after we've described the kick, now we're moving into the work portion. These are harder kicks to do, so make sure that you keep a good eye on the students and make sure that you see how their energy level is. Continue to motivate them, and now we'll move into the next phase of the training. We're ready now to move on to the target portion. Again, remember our progression. First, we teach the technique, demonstration. Second, practice it in combination in the air. Third, we move into combinations on targets to refine the skill. So, first technique, round kick. Into Notabon. And back. One more time. Round kick. Into Notabon. This can be practiced on the floor or it can be practiced in the air. Depends on the level of your student. This portion of the class, again, is going to be the large part for this particular series. We really want to work on this skill. That's why we've focused only on this technique in this class. Now we're ready to try Notabon on the shield. I like to use the shield for Notabon because it stops the athlete from over-rotating. So one of the challenges on kicking the targets is that if the athlete doesn't have the technique perfected, they'll over-rotate or fall through the target. The bad news, though, is it stops the athlete from over-rotating. So we don't want this to be the cause of them from stopping. We want them to learn how to control their body. But it's an excellent training tool in the beginning to get them to focus on the kick without worrying about over-rotating or falling down. So I watch the athlete, step, and kick. Very nice. Now, as they become more comfortable with this, I'll have them spin, hold the leg up in the air, and kick. Very nice. One more time. Spin and kick. This, of course, goes right into spin and kick. Here we go. Very nice. And then finally, a very quick Nadaban. Now again, they can practice this technique. They can step back and do the combinations. Back up. He can do round kick into Nadaban. He'll miss with the round kick and hit with the Nadaban. Very nice. Or he could hit with both kicks. Hit with the round kick. Nadaban. Okay? So structure this portion of the class however you'd like, because this one is up to you. You can have an athlete on each side trading Nadabans. You can have an athlete doing round kick into Nadaban on the shield. You can have them hitting with both kicks. This gives them the idea of what it feels like to hit with a Nadaban, causes them to react, and then causes them to land on the floor in a balanced fighting stance. Okay, partner drill with Nadaban. Now this next partner drill, all the partner's going to do is watch and observe. Again, trying to build the memory of what a Nadaban looks like when it's coming. So we're going to do the first combination, round kick into Nadaban. My job is going to be to watch, react, create distance so that he can't hit me, but it's going to allow him to practice the dynamic nature of the kick, kicking in the air and recovering after each one. So first is round kick. I move backwards, he spins and does Nadaban. I move backwards and I think about what my counter might be. Here we go again. Again, I'm watching, learning what the technique looks like, but it gives him an opportunity to practice. I would then do this back and forth. So he would practice his technique, I would practice mine, vice versa, until we got to the end of the drill. Now this portion of this drill, again, just a couple of minutes, really want them to work on the technique. I'm developing safety on my side, belief turning into confidence, which will yield a result. Next level, he's going to switch his feet. Now we're going to do the second combination. Step, round kick into Nadaban. So he's going to step, I'm going to retreat, he round kicks, and he follows with the Nadaban. I'm watching, learning where the distance is, and I'm thinking about what counter I might do once he landed. Watch again. It's going to be step, round kick into Nadaban. Go. And again, I'm not changing my position, but I'm pushing off my front foot and just drawing myself backwards and backwards, getting out of the way of the technique. Again, a lot of energy in this technique. It's a lot of spinning. If he's doing the technique properly, he'll be on the same line, step round kick, and he'll land on the same line, step round kick. Great. So we start in the air, we go to targets, we go to shields, and this is how we finish. Now we add one additional step. We're going to practice it again with a partner, but now this partner is going to think about the counter. I'll keep the counter simple for now, but basically all I'm going to do, switch your feet, I'm going to start with round kick, and he's going to do Nadaban. So Nadaban. I'm going to skip out of the way and round kick counter. So that's all it is. Very simple, very complete. This is one technique that you don't necessarily want to counter at the same time, because then you would eat this kick and this kick. There's another reason that you wouldn't necessarily counter this one as late, because you might get trapped by a back kick. But if you time it properly, you can execute this sort of counter. So here we go, round kick into Nadaban. Ow! Nice and easy. So not a lot of energy, just choosing my distance and scoring the kick to the body. Okay, now we're going to move on to our second partner drill with a reaction counter. So again, I'm just going to kind of move out of the way, choose my step as I go back, but I'm going to counter to the backside. I'm going to counter to the backside. And I like this option because I want people to start thinking, all your students, about countering to the kidney side. It shuts down a lot of potential techniques. In Notabon, for example, I'm going against the strong side. If he does his Notabon, and I come here, his body's already turning here. It's very easy for him to come into back kick. However, if I kick here after he finishes his Notabon, it shuts him down from being able to do a lot of things. His energy's already going this way, his body's turning that way, and it shuts him down. So the step might look like this. He goes step round kick, I slide back, he goes Notabon, I step back and counter to the back side. Okay? So watch again. Oh, sha. Nice and easy. Not a lot of contact, just a lot of energy. Here we go again. Hey! Again, nice and easy. Not a lot of contact, just for timing. Class number 9, beginning of a new sort of technique. Now, it's a very complicated technique, so you got to take your time with it. Maybe you'll need an additional class on this, but take whatever time is necessary. Don't be stuck by the class structure. Take the pieces you need. Now look, we didn't include a lot of combinations. We did not include a lot of different things. We focused just on the Notabon, and we added 1 or 2 things to give them the dynamic. When we move into class 10, we'll be adding different things and bringing some of our other techniques. So let's move on to class number 10. Torch class number 10. In this class, we're going to refocus on the Notabon again. We did this in class number 9, but now we're going to add some skills. This is a difficult technique, so in order to practice it, we're going to have to expend a lot of time on it, but we'll try to make it happen in different class levels. We'll add a little bit to it each time. So again, it's Notabon, so spinning round kick. As always, we're going to do our warm-ups. We'll do our warm-up steps, and then we'll do the warm-up kicking. So the first part of this class, after the warm-up and the warm-up steps, will be the actual warm-up kicking. So again, our athlete gets into fighting stance. From here, we'll just work the steps. So he's going to spin in and step in. That's the step for Notabon. We bring him back, spin in, step in. Very nice. Go back. Now we'll add that spin with the hop, spin, hop. Very nice. Now we'll add the total spin in the air. And very nice. Now this is the way you want to warm your athletes up to get ready for the Notabon kick, because it's a difficult technique. Once they get the skill set down and they feel comfortable with the motion, then you can lessen the amount of time we spend on this. But again, right after the warm-up, probably want to spend a couple of minutes so everybody feels comfortable. Remember to do it on both sides. Let's review a couple of basic rules on it though. So as the athlete is moving, we want to keep his body tight, and then we want him to push his hip forward. Okay? So let's do this towards camera now. We have the athlete. He's getting ready. He spins in, steps in. Notice how tight the motion is. Very, very clean and very, very tight. Spin and hop in. And then finally, spin in the air. Good. Okay, that's the first part, first drill for this next class. Now we're going to go right into the techniques that we'll be using during the class. Back the athlete up. Notabon on the floor. And back. Now with the kick, Notabon on the air. Kick! Very nice. Again, we'll be doing these on both sides. It's the second part of the drill in the air. Let's work on the techniques that we'll be doing in this section now. From this position, we'll have Notabon in the air. Kick! That will be the technique that we're working, but we're going to work different steps. So the first step will be step forward, Notabon. Kick! That's the first technique. So as we're teaching it, we'll work on the step and the Notabon. Now remember, if the athlete has been practicing the step on the floor and has been practicing just a single step, it's just a matter of describing it properly. So it's not step forward Notabon, it's step Notabon. When you break it down like that, they'll be very comfortable. When somebody sees this move done in full speed, it becomes very intimidating. But if they think about it simply, step Notabon makes it a lot easier. Now let's just break that down one step further before we get into the class. Think about what it really is. It's like a round kick or a step, then it's like a back kick and a round kick. And in fact, when you teach this, you could take the extra time to describe that. So let's back up again. We're going to do it exactly like that. Round kick, back kick, round kick. That's basically what it is. Now, those things take a lot of time to do, so we're going to take some of them out now. We're going to do a step, back kick, round kick. Now, that's what you would actually feel if you were fighting. You would see this back kick type of motion coming towards you. You would evade it, and that's what makes the Naraband so effective. In the person's mind, they're seeing a back kick coming towards them. Now we're going to take the back kick out. So we'll have step, spin like you're going to back kick, and round kick. Hey! That's all it is. Now we're taking it all out, and we're going to do it in the air. So it's going to be step, Naraband in the air. Hey! That's the way you describe it. That's the way you break it down for your students. Step by step. In this way, they'll understand the technique. More importantly, they'll start to build an understanding of where it sits in the technical regimen. One of the biggest mistakes we make as martial artists is we don't spend enough time explaining the technique and where it sits in the technical regimen. Now we're going to. I want them to understand the concept, I want them to understand the application, and then I want them to understand in a strategic sense where it lives in the real world. Okay, so just for review, we're backing it up. We have step, Naraband. Hey! Second technique for the air is going to be step back, Naraband. Hey! Those are the two techniques we're focusing on. Step in, Naraband, step back, Naraband. Break it down for your students like this. Step in, on the floor, Naraband. Very nice. Right from there, step back, on the floor, Naraband. Hey! Little more difficult. People are going to have an easier time spinning from one side to the other side. But as they get more comfortable, you can do step in the air, Naraband. Okay. Very nice. Step back in the air, Naraband. Okay. That will be the air drill portion of the kicks. Now we're ready to move on to the second phase of the class. Phase 2 of the class. We've done our warm-up, done our steps in the air, we've done our technical explanation. Every class starts this way. We want them to understand the technique, and once we get rolling, we want to keep that energy going for the 45 minutes or so. We're going to do the basic technique now on the targets. So we're going to do the same skill set. We're going to do the Naraband on the floor, Naraband with a hop, and then Naraband in the air. So we'll stand like this. The athletes will warm up just like this. Naraband on the floor. Very nice. Back. Let them reset, go slow, Naraband with the hop step in the middle. Hey! Very nice. That's going to give them the understanding of the technique, and then finally, Naraband in the air. Hey! Very nice. Now the way to teach this, as you're teaching it, is to do it just like that in one spot. Let them focus on each individual technique. We're not going to travel down the floor, but stay in one spot. Naraband on the floor, they go back, let them reset. Naraband with the hop step, and focus on the hop step because it'll become something that we use later. And then finally, Naraband in the air. So one more time before review. Naraband on the floor. Very nice. Naraband with the hop. Very nice. And then finally, Naraband in the air. Excellent. Now once you get this technique done, you can do this with your students up and down the floor. They do 1, 2, 3, switch their feet, each technique, and they can actually finish with the last one to the face. So 2 to the body, 1 to the face. Okay, now we're ready to move on to the actual combinations that we'll be practicing in this class. They've done the warm-up, give them about 5 minutes or so, enough time for each of them to go through each series a little bit. Then we go to the techniques that we're going to be doing in this class. We're going to do first, round kick into Naraband. Hey! Hey! Very nice. Then we're going to work on the techniques for this class. That was a review technique. We're going to do step forward, Naraband. Hey! As you can see, the reason we did that is it replaces the round kick. So instead of round kick, Naraband, the step is much quicker. It's deceptive, and they're not sure whether you're doing step back kick. Very nice. Or step Naraband. Hey! Right. So if I were fighting and somebody made that step, I might think they were trying to do step back kick, at which point I would to the side to try to counter. If I did that during this, I I would get hit with the Notabon. That's the purpose. So if you want to take an extra moment to explain to you students how this works, that's how this works. Now we're ready to move on to the next technique, which is step back Notabon. So the athlete steps backwards and executes a Notabon. Very nice. So let's review one more time. We have round kick into Notabon. Very nice. Back the athlete up. Step Notabon. And then finally, step back Notabon. Good. Let's focus just a moment on the step back. Let's take this time. Remember, it's a clean step back. Clean step back. Weight stays forward. As soon as that foot touches, it pushes off the floor, goes forward, and spins. Good. So one of the ways to start this idea is let the athlete put the foot in front, practice just a step back. Step back. Come back in. Step back. Then let them step back and spin in. Ready? Step back, spin in. Very nice. Step back, spin in. Once they get to that part, the rest is easy. It's just a round kick. So let's watch it from the front again. Step back. Nice and clean, nice and tight. Step back. Let's watch the spin now. Step back, spin in. That's the trick, is to keep it tight. One more time. Step back, spin in. Now step back, spin in, execute the kick. It's as easy as that, and it works just like that. Now this part of the class, take as much time as you need to instruct this. Maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and then let them practice for an additional 5 or 10 minutes. But the lion's share of the practice should end in this part. We're going to give you some additional drills, just in case the class has a higher skill level. Now we're ready to move on to the next series of drills. Now we want to follow with our regular method. We started with air, moved to targets, and now we're going to move to partner drills. Again, building the idea in the student that everything ends with a partner, because that's what we're trying to do. We do Taekwondo, or we do the Torch program with people. All right? Fighting stance. Understanding the role of a partner is important. We've talked about it a little bit. And at this point, really what I'm doing is I'm refocusing myself on what he's doing. So I can be actively helping him. I can watch what he's doing, and in the process of helping him, I am also learning. The other part of that, though, is I'm actually practicing my technique as well. I like people to actively practice, as I've said this before. So basically, I'm going to work on my defensive motion in my mind. Whether I execute a counter or not, I'm going to make the motion in my mind, if not a little bit with my body. So again, they do this back and forth. First, he does round kick into Notabon. I move back defensively, pausing, thinking about what I'm going to do. He goes back. Then he practices step Notabon. I might pick a different path, working on a different step. And then finally, he needs me on this one. I'm going to step forward, and he's going to Notabon. And I'm going to make some sort of defensive motion. So the first two, I simply retreat, retreat. The second one, I actually enter and retreat. From here, when I make my motion in, he steps backwards. He anticipates me going like this. When he makes that motion, I think it's a back kick. So I hesitate, and that's when the kick actually hits me. So again, let's work through it. He's going to do round kick into Notabon. I make my defensive motion. He's going to do step Notabon. I make an additional defensive motion. And then finally, I'm going to step in and make an additional defensive motion. Now this portion again can be done in one spot, or it can be done down the floor. Remember to switch sides to give them an opportunity not to get dizzy, and then switch people. So if they go this way, then they would go this way, switch their feet, go this way, they would go that way and switch their feet. Again, 5 to 10 minutes of the class, depending on the skill level, and then you're actually ready to move on to the next level of training. Now we add the extra part with a reaction from me. So now that I've trained myself to move properly, I'm thinking about the possibilities where I can be when the kick comes, then I'm going to think about the counter. So depending on the level of the student, they'll either execute the counter after, for now, not during, or they'll just make the motion for the counter, and it can be away without touching. So once again, let's go through the technique, and then I'll add my part. So on the first one, when he does round kick into Notabon, I'm going to escape. escape, and then counter to the backside, right? In this particular situation, my counter is usually to the backside for Nadaban. And the reason is the nature of the kick and where they're ending up. So if I know it's a Nadaban, I'm going to try to kick to the backside. I'm going to give it to you from this perspective so you can see what I'm talking about. He round kicks, his body's spinning this way. When he does the Nadaban, his body's going to continue to spin this way. So I'm going to make my motion slightly off to the side. Spin and kick. In this way, the kick is past me. His body is available to me here. He's only left with a back kick counter or spinning this way. It's very difficult for him to change his momentum to come this way. So any technique that I do to this side of the body will be effective. But I've got to make the right choices. So again, I'm here. He does round kick. He does Nadaban. And I have my counter here, wherever I want on this side of the body for now. The second technique, I'm going to change my counter slightly. So he's going to step forward, spin and Nadaban, and I'm going to stay a little bit more to this side because the step takes a little bit more time. And here again, I'm still left with the same options for counters. Finally, when he does the step backwards Nadaban, I'm going to change it, but to go to the other side. So I make my motion in, and it's easy for me, once I see him to start to spin, to make a sideway motion, I'm going to move this way this time. And I have many counters from this side. Round kick to the face, skip, axe kick, things of this nature. But it really is a question of timing. I don't necessarily like to counter Nadaban at the same time, because when you counter at the same time, usually Nadaban will win. Because it's a very, very powerful technique. So I'm going to wait for that kick to come down, and then I'm going to follow through. That's why I make such a deliberate side motion. This way, it's very difficult for him to continue with a back kick or a back hook kick. Class number 10's wrap-up is really simple. Again, this is only 2 classes. Probably you're doing them in the same week. We're concentrating on the same technique because of the difficulty of the technique. In point of fact, you could concentrate on this technique probably for a month or so. Different versions, adding different stuff to have them not get bored with the technique, but it really is going to take some time. So, at different times during the program, we're going to change the technique. We're going to change the way it's delivered, but we're going to refocus on this technique because it's going to take some time. Once again, kicking in the air, kicking on the targets, kicking with a partner simply to get the technique, and then finally, kicking with a partner for countering. So thinking about the potentials for counter so that they can understand the liability of Nadaban. It's a big technique. It takes a lot of time relative to other techniques, but it's also very powerful. So if you attempt to counter it at the wrong moment, it becomes ineffective. Now we're ready to move on to class number 11 and our next technique. Class number 11, the technique is up ball, better known as front kick. Up means front, pal or bal means leg or foot in Korean, depending on its usage. So just for reasons of continuity, we're going to use the word up ball. It's a word everybody's kind of familiar with. With that said, there are a number of different ways to do virtually every kick that we teach, but for up ball, we're going to teach the 3 different ways that I find to be most effective. So again, it's a front leg round kick. Depending upon its usage, we'll use different ways of moving with it. Fighting stance, well-balanced fighting stance. From here, we have the first up ball, quickest, most effective. Off the front leg, just lift and up ball. That's all it is. It's simply lifting the leg. The thing that makes it powerful, remember, is the turning of the hip. So if I just lift my leg and do round kick, it doesn't work. I want to pivot on my back foot, cross the plane with both my hip, leg, and foot. This way, everything, the power comes from here, drives from the floor. So again, front leg up ball. Very nice, a little bit more of a pivot. That's it. Now we have the second version, which is drawback up ball. We're going to take our hip and foot, draw it back. It covers about half the distance, and then we're going to up ball. That's all it is. It's simply a half step back with the front leg. The rear leg doesn't move. It creates the perception that you're actually moving back, but really you're just changing the distance slightly, but the perception is more important. Number 3 is skip back up bow. Now this technique covers a lot of distance depending upon what you need it for. For me, I'll lift this foot just like I was doing pata chugging, and in fact they may think it's pata chugging, and then I'll draw back this leg and kick. So I'll add both this and this at the same time. So third, go.
Hey!
Very nice. A lot of distance, can cover a lot of distance, make your opponent miss and make them pay with the up bow. Excellent counter technique. So again, we have number one, up bow.
Hey!
Draw back up bow.
Hey!
Skip back up bow.
Hey!
3 different distances, same technique, 3 different levels that you can counterattack from. Now we're going to go to the air portion of the kicking. So we turn the athlete to the front of the room. So as we're practicing this now, I have the athlete standing just like this, and I give them the count of 1, 2, and 3, and I give them the different techniques. So if I say 1, 1 is the lift leg. 1.
Hey!
1.
Hey!
Number 2 is the drawback. 2.
Hey!
2.
Hey!
I say 3. 3 is the skip back. 3.
Hey!
3.
Hey!
Switch. Then I have them do it on both sides. At first I do 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3. Then I follow that with 1, 2, 3, and then I may start to change the numbers, forcing them to think about it a little bit, react, change their distance. Again, we teach the technique first. Second portion, we do it in the air just like this. We're focusing on a number of different things. Are they turning their hip? Are they lifting their leg? Are they drawing it away from the body? Remember the fundamental rules. Everything comes close and tight. The power for our short techniques comes from the hip and from the floor. From the hip and from the floor. As this hip turns, he connects his body and his hip. We don't want him to make a V in here as he's kicking. So if he lifts his leg, this is no power. This is just leg kicking. You want this and this. Lift the leg. Now he can kick with the waist connected to the floor. Becomes a more powerful kick. And then finally, remember, we don't want the foot coming off the line. So when you're looking at his foot, he lifts his foot. Notice how it's still on this line, on this side of his body. We don't want his foot back here. And we don't want this. Right? This opens up, telegraphs the technique. A lot of people try to generate power by causing their body to go this way and then turn this way. That's the same as trying to punch like this and like this. Shorter, closer is better. What you lack in distance and technique, because remember the formula for power is mass, my body weight, times distance, right? Directness to the target, and ultimately momentum. So we're shortening the distance, but we're going to make up for it in speed. And everything in fighting is a balance between offensive liability and defensive capability. In other words, how effective is the technique, its capability in an offensive sense, and what is the defensive liability in doing it in a certain fashion. So you might sacrifice certain things in the technique to make it more capable of scoring a point without it having a great defensive liability. And we'll talk about that in other techniques. Now we're ready to move on to the next segment of the class, back to target work. So now we're ready to do it with targets. We've done it in the air. We've taught the technique. Again, 10 to 15 minutes of the class. Now we're in the meat of the class, the 30-minute section of work that they're going to build the skills in. These are reaction drills. I want them to be a little reactive. So first drill is 1. That means I'm just going to give him the target. He's going to kick it. Hey!
Bang!
It's working on reacting. This leg is going to come off the floor. Couple of things you want to watch for. We don't want to see. We don't want to see him setting for the technique, right? We don't want to see him anticipating a front leg kick so he's got all his weight on his back leg. Really want him in a balanced fighting stance where he's turning, shifting the leg, and shifting the waist. 1!
Bang!
Very nice. Now we're going to move on to number 2. Remember, 2 is the drawback, so we need a little bit more depth. Hey!
Bang!
He can put that foot here. He can put that foot here. He can bring it all the way here. And then he can adjust his waist as well. He can go deeper, closer, whatever's necessary. What is important again is that the foot, the knee, the hip, everything breaks the plane and the bottom foot pivots. Finally, number 3. Hey!
Hey!
Deepest one yet, just like the pata chuggy step. That foot's going to go back, this foot's going to come in. And again, we want the Super Bowl effect. As soon as that foot touches, it goes right back up, hits the target. The way to do this drill is to keep them in one spot. This way they're learning the distance. It's consistent. 1,
Bang!
2,
Bang!
and 3. A little deeper on the third, then we would switch feet, do that again. We'd have this person do it at least twice or 3 times on each side, and then we would switch to this side. This can be about 5 to 10 minutes of your class, depending. Keep them engaged, look at them, and correct the things that you know you're focusing on today. The way to teach this technique, and quite honestly to correct any technique, is one piece at a time. Teach your students to focus on one thing. If your car's broken, you can't fix it all at once. You're going to fix the fan belt, you'll fix the transmission, you'll fix one thing at a time. And in fixing that thing, the car gets overall better. Same thing with technique. If he's moving his hip wrong, his foot is wrong, this is wrong, get them to focus on one thing. Say you're moving your front foot too late, or you're not turning your hip. Don't tell them 3 or 4 things. Fix one that is crucial to the execution of the technique. Then move on to another thing. But don't give them a list of 4 or 5, one thing at a time. And in fact, when you teach technique, teach one focal point at a time. Okay, now we're ready to move on to the next level of the class. Now we're ready for the shield drill. Now the shield drill can be replaced with a partner drill as well, where you have the athletes put on a chest protector. But at this level, let's work on the technique first with the shield. If you have advanced students and you're teaching this for your advanced students, simply replace this with a chest protector. Put a chest protector on. The athlete would use their body instead with different motions. And you'll see this in our next drill in this class. But for now, again with the shield. So the Torch Club program shield, shaped like a body shaped kind of round, so it gives you a nice target area. In addition to that, it's got a little extra padding here, so it's good to rest across the body. Then I can control this in a number of ways to make sure it's effective. I like to tilt the shield just over just a touch. And there's a reason for that. When people fight, they're turned over just a touch. In addition to that, nothing in life is perfectly straight. It also would prevent the kick from sliding up and kicking the person that's holding in the face by accident. With that said, we're going to work on front leg to the body, number 1. 2, which is the drawback, half step. 3 is the skip back, and the final 1. So we bring the athlete up. 1.
Bang!
Nice reaction time. I'm holding the shield, watching. He's going to draw back. I go a little bit deeper. 2.
Bang!
Very nice. And then finally, number 3. I need to take a big skip in, or I need to take a big step in to force him to go back. Right? 3.
Bang!
All I've done is replace the target with a shield or a chest protector. Now this drill I actually like to do up and down the floor. Also takes a lot of energy. The one thing about the drill that's a little bit challenging is they start to overcompensate for power. So what you'll notice when you're teaching this drill is the athlete will draw the leg back and he'll try to turn the hip because there's a little bit of ego or pride in this if you can knock the person back. And we all know those types of students. But you're going to force them to do the technique properly. And you're going to teach them the subtlety of just the hip turning. You can generate as much power from the hip turning as you can from bringing the hip here. It's easy to generate power with big, long, wide technique because it acts as a whip and you get a lot of torquing motion. It's very difficult to learn the subtlety of power that generates just from small motion, the hip and the floor. But your athletes will be better for the process if you teach them the power from the small intricacies of the hip motion and leveraging from the floor as we move through the program. So again, we're in the early stages. Let's fix it now, because if you don't fix it now, it'll come back to haunt you later. So I'll bring the athlete up, down the floor. He comes closer. First one is just a reaction. 1.
Bang!
2.
Bang!
And 3.
Bang!
Okay. Now, he needs to adjust just a little bit better, so I'd say, come on back. We'd work on number 1. I might do number 1 over and over again. Number 1, I might not even move. I'll stand here like this. 1.
Bang!
That's all I need him to do. 1.
Bang!
Just like that. When I feel comfortable he has the skill, I'll have him draw back. So I'm going to remember this position, and I'm just going to shift back. Draw back.
Bang!
That's all he needs to do. I come back here, draw back.
Bang!
Very nice. Finally, I'm going to take that motion and skip in, forcing him to skip back. 3.
Bang!
Now he understands the 3 distances. Try to get your students to be consistent in the application of the distance. As you're teaching it, stationary, half step in, mirroring their step backwards, and then finally the full in mirroring their distance. Let them work down the floor on one side, switch the target, the other person goes, then they switch sides. Again, this is going to be the lion's share of this class because it's a hard technique. Now, what I mean by hard, it's an easy technique to execute. It's a hard technique to execute well. Easy technique to execute, hard to do properly. That's the challenge with this technique. Almost everybody can do this technique, but so few do it well. And what I mean by well is subtle hip motion, power to the body, and if you do it well, you will throw your opponent off balance. The power of this technique will force them to become off balance. It's also very quick, so you can catch them early in their motion. Easy to do, hard to do well. And let the students know that. Use that phrase because it's going to become crucial as they train. Techniques that are easy to do are often done poorly. And that won't matter at this level, but it will matter when they reach the 95th or 96th percentile and they're fighting somebody else that they want to win a gold medal from. Final drill of the class, reaction drill with a partner. Always like to tail it up with reaction drills with a partner. At the end of the day, it's all about putting your foot on somebody else's chest protector or headgear. That's what scores a point. We try to minimize the amount of time we get hit and maximize the amount of time that we're hitting someone else. Fighting stance? Good. So as I'm moving with my partner, all I want him to do is react when I move. So he's going to practice his technique. Now, if I don't have a chest protector on, or if I don't have my shield or my target, then I'm going to either give him my hand for the reaction, or I'm going to give him a face kick and I'm going to practice my defense. Now, in the torch program in Olympic style Taekwondo, we really don't try to block. Everything is done about blending. Now, you're going to learn this in later DVDs. We don't block, we blend. We move with the technique, we may cover, but there's no hard blocking. The only time we use hard blocking or deflecting is when we're caught. We have nothing else to do. We're stuck, foot's going to hit us, and we put our hand in there. We really try to counter with counter kicks. So here's one option, especially for your kids. Now it's going to be light and fast. I'm going to move in.
Hey!
He's going to react. Right? So I give him just a small touch. I learned how to catch. If I had arm guards on, I would do it with my arm guard. Right? 1.
Hey!
Good. 2 is the drawback. 2.
Hey!
Now I'm giving him an opportunity to practice his face kick. I'm going to give him one last face kick. 3.
Hey!
Very nice. Now, in order to block effectively, most of us know this already, but I'm just going to go through it. Remember, it's about planes. We talked about planes. So if I want to block my face, all I need to do is put my hand here. I don't need to physically block it, and I don't need to make it a point in time. And what I mean by that is if a kick is linear, no matter whether a kick is round, it's still linear. It's connected to a linear object. It has a plane, something hard that can't go around it. So all I need to do is break the plane with the arm. A big mistake that beginners make is they go like this. So there's only one instance of where I can catch that. So if the kick is coming like this, and I miss that instance, the kick passes the plane and hits me, unfortunately, in the face. Not a good thing. With that said, all I need to do is do this. And at no point can anything break this plane. So as we're watching, if I put my hand here,
Hey!
can't break the plane. Worst case scenario, I'd hit myself. If I need a little bit more, what I'll do is this.
Hey!
I may move my head. Now, unfortunately, that also looks like a point, depending upon your perspective. And actually, as you're watching it there, it may look as if my head did that. I've lost some big points like that. I've actually blocked the techniques, but I moved the head and it looked like I actually got kicked in the head. So not the best way to block. But again, for training, not a bad habit. We're trying to build the belief in our students that they can survive and they can learn the techniques and they will be effective. But more importantly, that the counters will be effective. Now we're also building, hey, listen, if I miss it, I don't move properly, I still can cover and block it. Students will spar better, do this program better, if they have the confidence that they can't be hit or they can counter. Now we're working on the part where they can't be hit. So again, just lift to the face, 1.
Hey!
1.
Hey!
Draw back 2.
Hey!
Right? Watch my hand as it comes up. It starts here. This is just in case. 2.
Hey!
Finally, 3.
Hey!
Very nice. Now, even that, if you have a young student, that might hurt your student's hand. He feels like he's catching it or whatever. So make sure they put some sort of safety equipment on, whether it's a shin guard or arm guard, something that's going to cover their arm, and they can actually put it in front. So I like to use those shin guards that have the little foot protector and put that foot protector here. Changing it from a target, because the target, they know they're not actually blocking, but they should be thinking like that as well. They're catching it with the target. Same thing with this shield. Okay, so now we're done with the majority of this class. Again, this portion of the class we could change. This could be to the body, right? 1,
Hey!
2,
Hey!
right? And 3.
Hey!
And in my mind, I'm thinking about the counter. I'm thinking about the different things that I might do to trap it. Now we're ready to go to the conclusion. Key points of this class. The technique, up ball, easy to execute, hard to do properly. Easy to execute, hard to do properly, difficult to do properly. Focus your students on that. This way they can understand what you're talking about. Getting students to focus on the subtleties of the motion, very difficult. Big motions they love, little motions they hate. Second, understand the distance. We're focusing on distance. This is a very subtle thing as well. Short distance, usually we have very close distance or we have very long distance. These are subtle distances. In place, half step, and then finally the longer step. And again, these can be combined with steps to make it even longer or even shorter. So we're going to work on that in further classes. Now we're ready to move on to our next session.